Welcome to Indian Masterminds. We have with us Mr. Anil Swarup, an eminent IAS officer who served as Secretary to Government of India in various ministries. Welcome, Mr. Swarup. Once again, welcome. You are very, very warm. We'll discuss about your work today, how you started and how you reached to the pinnacle of your career. So, let's start how you started your work as SDM.
It was a very challenging assignment. I was posted, my first posting as sub-divisional magistrate was in a difficult district, Hardoi. And those were the days when we had a lot of law and order problem. And the worst was when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was assassinated. All hell seems to have broken loose. Members of the ruling party were indulging in arson and looting vis-a-vis a minority community. And it was a very tough job to take care of that situation. I used to go around the city maintaining law and order. And I got this intelligence that one of the most prominent member of Legislative Assembly and a very powerful MLA was behind this arson. So I faced my first major dilemma in my career as to whether I should take action against him. And when I call these ethical dilemmas because there was nothing illegal if I didn't take action against him, or there was nothing illegal if I did take action against him. I decided to take action against him, not directly, but make out a case under National Security Act, which would put him behind the bars for a year. And this file was sent to the district magistrate, who was the deciding authority in this particular case. But this MLA got to know of it. He was very upset. He went to Lucknow, spoke to some people, and I was summoned by a senior officer. I drove down to Lucknow, about an hour and a half drive from my place. And when I entered the room of the senior officer, he asked me, "Anil, tumne kya kar diya?" So I told him. He said, "Nahi, tumne file wapas le." I said, "Sir, the decision has to be taken by the district magistrate. I don't have to take that decision. He can reject my file." "Nahi, tumhare hit mein hai. It's in your own interest that you take the file back." I said, "Sir, हमने file तो भेज दिया, हम क्या वापस लेंगे? मतलब I don't know how it works, but he can reject it." And the conversation ended. I came back to my subdivision, and within, I think, 48 hours, I was transferred out. I was pretty devastated. So, it was baptized by fire because I saw a lot of arson, actually, looting, and many people were arrested, and it was they who told me who was behind all that. So in that particular case, it was tough to begin with. There were other experiences during my sub-divisional magistrate stint, and those related to my interaction with the politicians. And at that point in time, I had erroneously believed that whatever politician tells me is wrong. They are all corrupt. It was gradually that I realized that I was wrong. Politicians weren't. They were as corrupt as anybody else in the bureaucracy. I mean, corruption is there in the society as a whole. So every segment has its own share of corruption. So are politicians. Nothing unusual. Yes, it is wrong, but it's wrong elsewhere as well. It was gradually that I realized that a lot of what politician was telling me was right. A lot of it was wrong, but a lot of it was right. And that is when I started understanding the politician. So my understanding or misunderstanding or misapprehension about politician got corrected over a period of time. But this period was a period of learning as sub-divisional magistrate, where my exposure to the local politician made me understand many things.
I remember one incident you probably narrated either in your book or you told me about a buffalo of an officer.
Actually, this was in 1986.
And you were still SDM?
No. I was Deputy Administrator, Lucknow Municipal Corporation. In those days, the municipal corporations did not have elected people. So I was the Deputy Administrator there. And, the cows and buffalo menace was there. They were all stray cattle all over the place here in Lucknow. So we decided to impound them, to take them on and put them in various areas.
Here.
So we were doing that, and officers were doing it very well. Suddenly I get a call from an officer who had trained me. I was his probationer. And he tells me, "Anil, tumne hamari gaay ko band kar diya." So initially I didn't understand. Then I realized one of the officers, the cow must have been floating around and someone has taken the cow. So I told him, "Sir, main malum karta hu." So I found out actually the cow had been impounded. So he said, "Chhoda do." Now, again a dilemma before me because fine had to be paid.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point in time, I didn't know how can a cow be released without paying a fine. There was a pressure coming from somebody who admired, who had trained me. So what do? I didn't have an immediate answer. मैंने कहा साला कुछ करते हैं. Now, I didn't want to release the cow without the pay. Without being fined. And I didn't have the courage to ask him to make the payment. So I made the payment on his behalf and the cow was released.
So you would say you have to pick up your fights. You don't have to fight all the time.
That, of course, is true. Why should you fight with everybody and anybody? You have to pick up your fight. And secondly, as I said, I'm not very sure what I did was right or wrong. I did it what I thought was right at that point in time. There's no permanent right or permanent or everlasting right, everlasting wrong. Whatever I thought at that point in time, I did it. And since I owed so much to this officer, and I thought what he was asking me was wrong, I didn't want to make him feel guilty about it, so I paid it and released him. He may have thought that probably I got him released.
Yeah, because I know certain officers who have been taking on the system at every level, even if there is some hera-fairy in, say, usage of car or everything, they'll put up a spoke, and they are paying price for that also. But yeah, as you rightly saying, that to win battles, you have to choose your fight.
See, it's like this. Every individual has a sense of right and wrong. Okay. And the problem arises when you start imposing your sense of right over the others. Let me explain it further. One is legal and illegal. If it is illegal, there's no compromise. There's not picking up this battle. Every battle which is illegal, you are fighting with it, you have to take it up. It's the gray area where you have to pick up your battle. Where you think this is right, other chap think that others is right. And entire life is about accommodation, not compromise. We refuse to accommodate. And many of officers who think that they are honest and may be honest, they somehow erroneously believe that the rest of the world is dishonest. That's where the problem arises. Because they think until I give a certificate to a person, he is not honest, which is wrong. Honesty is not a monopoly of a few people or few officers. They may or may not be honest. I'm not even passing a judgment. But you have no business to presume that everyone else is dishonest. That is one. Second, because of this feeling or presumption of feeling that others are dishonest, you stop doing any work. So nothing gets done. So you are getting paid for just being honest, which I don't think is right. I write a full chapter in my book, Ethical Dilemmas, where I write honesty alone is not enough. I am repeating it. Honesty is a necessary condition, but not sufficient condition for a good officer. He has to deliver. And in delivery, he has to indulge in accommodation, not compromise. There are so many conflicting interests and demands that come to you. It's your job to bring about an accommodation between those conflicting interests and move away.
I'll give you another example here, a situation wherein you are working somewhere where you have a superiors also, and you find that the official car is being logged for say 800 kilometers to 1,000 in a day in a city like say Hardoi or Lakhimpur or maybe Lucknow. What will you do?
I have faced that situation.
Yeah.
Not as subdivision magistrate, because I don't think any collector that I had misused this. But later on in my career, in a polite conversation, I tried to convey it to my boss. That's it. And in one case, the boss accepted it, explained his limitations, why it is happening. In another case, he just ignored me. Now, I can start a whispering campaign against my boss. I can start a, whistleblower, become a whistleblower for my boss's misuse of car. I can do that.
You can also...
You have to decide what you want to do. What is your ultimate objective? As I said, there are no absolute rights and absolute wrongs. You have to see where you can do. Now, if I were to sign those logbooks on his wheel,
exactly,
I won't do that.
You won't sign.
I will.
And you'll face the consequences.
Because why should I face the consequences of ways wrong? It's not my job.
Right.
Because it's wrong. If he's doing a wrong, at best I can, informally tell him, let him face the consequences. ये देखिए ये बड़ा सिंपल है. हमने समाज सुधार का ठेका नहीं लेना है सर्विस. Many of us start taking the responsibility of the entire society while being in service. To me, the bottom line is a seminal quote by an American monk by the name of Reinhold Niebuhr. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference between the two. This is critical. Otherwise, you'll go mad, You'll start trying to correct everyone around you. And what will happen to you? You'll go mad. There's so many wrongs happening around you. So whether you want to spend time in correcting all the wrongs or trying to correct wrongs which you can.
If I remember correctly, when you were in Udyog Bandhu, or maybe pickup, and you told one of the officers who was superior to you to exercise caution, and that officer ultimately went on to become the chief secretary, and as you said, went behind the bars. So what had happened? What was the caution you?
No, it was the concerned officer, when the concerned officer was chief secretary, he rang me up to do something which was illegal. He rang me up to which was contrary to law. I told her very clearly that this is illegal and probably we'll end up in prison if you do that. I didn't do it.
Has she listened to it?
No, she didn't really listen to me. I was somehow kicked upwards. I was transferred out. And the job was done.
Has she was arrested only for
Not
that?
for this. I don't think she was arrested. She was arrested. A person who's in the habit of doing wrong will get caught somewhere else. He or she may not get caught for every wrong that he or she does. But if you get into the habit, you start believing that I can get away with every wrong. Some officers do believe in that. I remember in the 90s in UP, many officers felt that nothing, like the young officer that asked, what is wrong in becoming corrupt?
Right.
Some people start believing that corrupt ways they can get away with it.
Right.
So when they get caught, they don't know what is it.
Okay. And now we come to your next postings. So you became district collector of Lakhimpur, and next you went to become state information director information, where you had all the eyes and ears of the chief minister. And one incident, if I remember, you were with him when the Babri Masjid was demolished. So what panned out that day?
It was a Sunday, if I remember correctly, or at least a holiday. It was not a working day. I think it was a Sunday. As was my duty every day, in the morning I used to go to brief him about the news coverage. In those days, we didn't have television so much, just the Doordarshan. And when I reached his residence, unlike the usual days where he was surrounded by so many people, he was sitting alone actually on that day. He looked a bit forlorn.
Not many officers or party workers with him.
Party workers, no one was. It was a very unusual day. He was alone. When I reached him and we were indulging in a conversation.
6 December 1992.
There was nobody with him. At least when I entered the room, he was alone. Later on, some people came in. And he looked a bit disturbed, a bit forlorn. He was not his usual self. Because what I had got to know of him a few days before that, he was attempting to persuade his mentors or his seniors in Delhi not to get the congregation going in Faidabad. He was against that. He was against people congregating at Faidabad. Not many people believe this, but that's a fact. I know it for sure. And when the message came from Ayodhya that the dome had come down, it came on telephone, because in those days we didn't have mobile phones.
Live TV.
He was shattered totally. He was totally devastated. And the conversations that he had with Mr. Lal Krishna Advani and late Bhairav Singh Shekhawat, who was then the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, were pretty revealing. He was very angry with them. He was telling them, मैंने आप लोगों को मना किया था कि इतने लोगों को इकट्ठे ना, लेकिन आप लोग मेरी बात नहीं माने. These are his words. And again, since there was nobody else, he's no more alive. I heard them. I was there. And then after this long conversation with them, where he blew his top, he was very angry with them. He put the phone down and then he asked me to get a piece of paper. And then he wrote in his own hand,
a resignation.
इस पूरी घटना का उत्तरदायित्व मैं स्वयं लेता हूं, किसी भी अधिकारी या अन्य व्यक्ति को इसका उत्तरदायी ना बनाए. These are his words that he wrote on. Later on, of course, a formal resignation letter was typed and signed, which I didn't see. But this is what happened in front of me. Here was an amazing person, a chief minister, who was prepared to take the entire responsibility of what that was happening. Though he was not directly responsible for what was happening, he was actually against it. Not many people know that Mr. Kalyan Singh did not want the masjid to be demolished in this manner. He was engaging with a lot of groups. And his suggestion was exactly what the Supreme Court finally decided a few decades down the line. He used to say, मैं आपके लिए भव्य मस्जिद कहीं और बना दूंगा, आप तो यहाँ अभी अपने नमाज भी नहीं पढ़ते, और जिस ढांचे में आप 12 साल नमाज नहीं पढ़ते, मेरी जानकारी के हिसाब से तो आपकी मस्जिद है ही नहीं वो, तो आप किस बात का झगड़ा कर रहे हैं, आप हमें मंदिर बनाने दिए. This was his fundamental logic.
And probably this was also the logic given by Chandrasekhar government, which had almost reached an agreement with both parties.
You know, I think, I mean, it's a hindsight wisdom, but I think had Kalyan Singh been given more time, had this not been precipitated, he would have found a solution. He was a statesman. He believed in talking to people around. Unlike some of the politicians who think that what they're saying is right. No, he didn't believe in that. He believed in conversation, in communication, in interaction, in consensus building. He had those qualities. He was a statesman.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for talking about your initial years. Now we'll come to, in our next segment, we'll talk about your stint at the center, how you formulated RSBY, and also coal auctions. Thank you so much, sir.